Morning, everybody. So nice to see a lot of people in attendance to this important City Commission workshop regarding a bond and various infrastructure projects that the city is considering to fund through a general obligation bond. We'll begin with the pledge to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Mayor Trost.
Here.
Commission President Jaffe.
Here.
Commission Vice President Mocker.
Here.
Commissioner Johnson.
Here.
Commissioner Long.
Here.
Commissioner Van Busker.
Here.
City Attorney Cirillo.
Here.
Finance Director DePaulo.
Here.
Fire Chief Gil Martin.
Here.
Library Director Keys. Police Chief Licata. Public Works Director Schramm.
Here.
Recreation Director Leasing.
Okay, we have a somewhat simple but important agenda, and as I am apt to do before these meetings very quickly, is kind of to give an overlay of what we're going to be talking about. I try to keep it short, and when you see the dirty looks from my fellow commissioners, that's when I know it's time to be quiet. But I like the people who have taken time out of their day to kind of understand how this is going to proceed and exactly what we're doing here. As most of the people know here, we are considering a general obligation bond to fund major infrastructure projects in Lighthouse Point. You're going to hear today a bunch of different conceptual items that have been discussed with various options. What you see up there, quite candidly, might not be ultimately what gets done. The purpose of these meetings is for your commissioners to decide basically two things. One, if there is a need for infrastructure projects in the city. Two, to get as good an idea as we can before we actually design something, how much money we need to accomplish the tasks and the goals that have been identified by administration, the mayor, and the department heads who have all played a very big role in this. It'll be then for the commissioners to decide two things. One, should an item be put on the ballot for the residents of Lighthouse Point to vote on? And that item would be, should the city borrow X number of dollars in order to accomplish many of these goals that you're going to see. So basically what the commission needs to decide is how much and how to put it on the ballot. If I may be so bold as to speak on behalf of the commissioners, I think we kind of are all of an opinion that something needs to go on the ballot, but how much and how it's going to go on there are really the questions. But that is not to preclude anybody in this audience to express their opinion in any way, shape, or form. So with that being said, we have, do you want to add something, Commissioner? Please, if I misstated anything, go ahead. Okay. So with that being said, we have Meryl Romanek, who has been an architect, heavily involved in designing some of the projects that we're going to be considering. And basically at this point, without actually designing something, we don't have very much to go on other than size to figure out how much these projects are going to cost. And we're going to have time after this workshop. There is going to be a special meeting that we will call a separate special meeting of the City Commission, and we will give the public opportunity to provide comment and input. And the actual vote for the bond is actually scheduled to take place tomorrow night at 6:30. So you have plenty of time to blow up our phones between now and then to if you don't want to talk to us publicly, to give us your thoughts. So it's going to be an interesting 36 hours, but an important 36 hours. Thank you for coming, and turn it over to Ms. Roman.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, and Attorney Cirillo. Glad to be back with you all again to walk through all the options available to you all as far as recreating or reinvesting in the community. Wanted to walk it through once again. I know you've seen some of these slides, but because we have new audience members, I want to make sure that we share everything conceptually that we've been considering. Basically, we'll start with the City Hall site. Sorry. Basically, the concept would be that we would remove Dixon-All Hall to make way for a new fire station that would be built on that same corner. The new fire station would include an EOC presence and also potentially a community center that would share that space on the third level to replace the community activities that currently occur in Dixon-All Hall. When that is completed, we would then remove the fire station and add parking, approximately another 30 parking spaces to City Hall, in complementing the 33 that are over at the City Hall site. And then in addition to that, let's think of back, we would, part of the bond consideration is there is a second level that is really storage inside City Hall that we would convert to a community room there, so they could host larger events for internal library functions, for group gatherings and learning sessions, lectures, and different types of community-based events.
Ms. Roenick, that's the second story of the library.
Correct.
So we're clear for
Yeah,
everybody.
over at City Hall. So that it would entail everything that we would do at the City Hall site. At Dan Witt Park, we would basically, today there's an existing restroom building, concession building, and a little bit of storage. That building would come down, as well as the Public Works building that is currently for fleet maintenance. As we all know, that building floods on a regular basis, so we need to make sure that we take care of it, and we also want to make sure that the park amenities are appropriate for the programs that are there. So the idea would be that we would come back with a new community center building that would allow folks to gather and store items, as well as have the park administration offices there, and then reinvent the Public Works fleet maintenance facility to provide better facilities, safer facilities. So ultimately, as part of that, we would also renovate Public Works, the building that's on the north side, the office side, the break room side, the restroom side, to bring it up to current standards. So I'm going to walk you through the fire station components. Basically, the first level would be your more traditional fire station, which would be 3 bays of apparatus, so that the fire trucks, the EMS trucks, even during storms, we could store and pack in as many vehicles as we possibly can to secure them. But it is more your traditional fire station with your living, sleeping, and working areas, as well as all your support spaces as far as bunker gear, EMS storage, laundry, and the typical protocols. On the second level would be the administrative side of the fire station and the training components that are tied to the fire station. So it would be your chief's office, the assistant chiefs, and some training room spaces. On the third floor would be the combined EOC/community center, so that you could, by day, it really would operate as a community center for the community-wide. But when we have those times when, unfortunately, the weather isn't our friend, you have a place to work out of, and work out of meaning all of the leadership of the city, the police department, whoever really needs to help support the community during those times. There is multi-purpose rooms that will also have a kitchen, so that by day that would be a catering spot so that food could be brought in, but by EOC that's where we would serve food and make sure that the folks are fully supported. The rooms would have walls that can fold, so that some rooms could end up being sleeping quarters for folks that end up camping out here during the storms, and you have the flexibility to kind of create your own little environment when those times of need occur. Basically, the dollar figure for that is about 10.6, almost $10.7 million to create that 3-story structure.
And that's at the $350 a square foot?
Correct.
And remind me, I thought I heard when we first started this that the higher stories actually cost less to build, or is that different with the fire station?
It's different that the community center costs a little bit less than the fire station. The fire station is your most expensive component.
Okay.
And because there's very little site work as part of this larger structure, I felt like we could bring the numbers down.
But why are all floors $350 and not?
I just leveled it out.
Average out? Okay.
Yeah, I just leveled it out.
Okay.
Basically, this is the library, and this would be the first floor improvements that would occur. And I'm going to flip to the second floor just so everybody sees what that means. The second floor that's there today is really a storage space and has a dumbwaiter basically a dumbwaiter to help move books and things upstairs. In order to provide a community room up there, we would need to provide restrooms up there that are not there today, and also include a stair and an elevator. Code requires that there be 2 means of egress, and an elevator doesn't count as a second means of egress, so we need to create that second set of stairs, because today there's only one. And then for ADA compliance, we'll need to provide the elevator to make sure that folks can safely get upstairs. If I go back, what that means is that the 2 tutoring rooms, which is where the blue highlight is, that exist today, would end up being the stair and the elevator, so then we would reposition those tutoring rooms over to where the yellow is on the left side, and then move the offices that were part of that space today, which would be where Parks and Rec's offices are today, there. So the budget number for this includes not only the development of the upstairs, and the stairs and the elevator, but also reinventing and cleaning up the spaces down below to make sure that they help support the tutoring space and the office spaces for the library. The budget figure for that is of almost $600,000. The Public Works facility, basically we're proposing providing 4 drive-in bays of varying depths, 2 of them smaller than the others, 2 of them longer, because obviously different vehicles merit different depths. Also, it's in context with the site because of the way that turnabout starts to happen in that area, and being that we're kind of in part of that public right-of-way, we're going to tier it back. We have the office spaces, which would end up being on the west side, and all the support infrastructure as far as electrical rooms and mechanical rooms. And then on the east side would be tool storage and small equipment storage room. This would all back up to basically the dugout side of the baseball fields. Then this would be replacing the existing facility. I've worked with Chuck on we talked about different variations on theme at different points, but he felt it's best if we could, it's not best, but it's a great compromise because it'll work better and the building can have this greater depth if we demolish the existing building. And basically during the construction, we're going to have to work with everybody together and be able to continue to do fleet maintenance out of Public Works side during that transition period.
The building you're talking about demolishing, again, just like to make sure everybody out there hasn't lived this, not everybody's lived this as much as we have, is basically the brick garage kind of thing.
Correct.
Right, immediately
Behind
north
the
of Danwood Park. The Kraft building? I wasn't around when it was the Kraft building, but I now know it's called that. So that goes down, this goes up.
That's correct.
Okay.
And then we would work with staff on making sure that we continue to provide the services out of the existing Public Works building.
Mayor, quick question.
Yeah.
How much additional cost would it be if you would repair that building for a possible second floor, maybe in the future, 10 years down the road or whatever?
Cost-wise, that's a little, I'd have to think about that for a little bit. The issue that I've had is that in my 25-year career, every time that a client has told us it was designed for a second floor, we've unfortunately had to come back because of code changes and the evolution of building codes and tell them
Can't do it anymore.
can't do it anymore.
Okay.
So I think it's more prudent that you would come back at a later date and straddle over with new structures and things like that, because it's always a disappointment, because it's just, we all know how many code changes, I've seen in the last 25 years, and they're always evolving and changing. So it is a shot in the dark, and sometimes you're guessing to try to make sure that you would meet that. So I don't like disappointing clients, but we'll run the analysis, and it just usually hasn't worked in the past. So I caution you from that perspective. The budget number, which includes the new building, which is a little over 3,000 square feet, and the renovation of about half of the existing Public Works building, takes us to about $850,000. I can't see, yeah, 870.
$69,959.
My eyes are still sleeping, I think. All right, so this is Danwood Park, and we've kicked around different variations on theme on this one. This is actually a 2-story solution. The goal no matter which solution we go to, is that we're able to create a facility where at least 150 kids can gather when there's inclement weather at the park. They can have programs out of there. It can be a support to the community as far as spaces for your, family's larger events and celebrations. So there would be a large community room that would not only serve the campers and the children in the community, but also anyone that has a larger event. We'd have restrooms. We would also have park storage and additional public works storage, kind of the compromise as far as building a larger structure, because the fleet maintenance side of the property of Public Works, it's a wedge. It's a very tight sliver. So the compromise is that we would move kind of the support components that serve the park, and specifically the park, the barricades, the lawnmowers, the cones, all the things that are part of the park stuff. Public Works would have their own storage facility at this building. There'd be a covered patio with a concession stand, so that when we have, the larger games and or the Halloween events and the 4th of July and all the larger things, that we could serve snacks and food to the community, as well as support for that concession can be the catering kitchen for the large event that may occur in the community room. The option A also includes a second level, which would bring the Parks and Recs offices to the second floor and provide upstairs a community room that is a little bit separate, so that the teens could be there. It could be a game room. It could also serve as a press box to the field area. And that number comes out to just over $2.4 million. Now, the next solution that we looked at for Dan Witt Park was option B, which is similar in tone, but it's a single-story solution, provides all the same amenities on the first floor that we had previously, but the Parks and Recs offices would not be included there, and there wouldn't be that opportunity to have a breakout space as far as a game room, teen center, or a smaller venue that if they had multiplicity of events, they had a space to go to. So this is that solution, which is at about basically 6,600 square feet, and that has a value of $1.336 million. And the last option that we looked at for the community center, what we call option C, brings back the Parks and Recs facility, office spaces, so that all of the park programs can work right out of this building, and basically they'll be on site. And then also the youth room with a game room that would allow that breakout space in case something was going on at the event, that there was still an overflow space for the community. But everything else basically stays exactly the same. And that bumps the number up to $1.69 million.
So one two-story facility, two single-story.
Correct. Option A is the only two-story
How many
solution.
square feet was on Plan C?
Plan C is 8205. That includes the covered patio outside, which is nice because it basically allows people to get food at the concession and be undercover while they partake in the food and the drinks, but also allows it to be a covered area that overlooks the new playground areas that are proposed to go in, and gives, kind of moms a place to go to, or dads, to cool off while the kids are running around and being fun.
Or my parents, grandmother, and
Right.
grandma and grandpa.
Grandma and
watch the kids
grandpa,
on.
exactly. Anybody can get a little respite. So it basically is connected directly to the playground areas. Okay, so this is basically a summary of what you saw as far as dollar values for the individual components. Part about what we'll discuss is the option A's, option B's, and option C's for Dan Witt Park. And then this is basically a summary of where we are. And I cannot read that from here, so let me pull it up here.
Neither can anybody else.
I was going to say, I'll read that out.
You can read those now?
I can't read it.
15.91. 15.
Yeah, let me go. Can I go up to the screen?
Yes.
15.8 and 16.7 plus 6.
All right.
I can't even read the line.
Option A, and we have built in, on top of what you saw in the previous breakdowns, a 15% contingency. The 15% contingency is there in case cost escalation occurs, to give us a little bit of buffer, and also to allow for just some wiggle room as far as unforeseens that may happen when you start digging up the earth or start demolishing something or renovating something. It just gives us a little bit of a buffer on top of it. So the option A is about 16.794.
Okay.
Option B is 15.4, and option C is 15.9.
Why, we previously had discussed a 10% contingency. What's the basis for going to 15? Because that extra 5% is,
It can be, we can discuss that. I mean, that's obviously a option that we need to
yeah.
come to consensus on as far as what's the appropriate value. It certainly can be anywhere between 10 and 15. It just gives you much more flexibility.
If I may, on Saturday, John and I were speaking with Merrill about the contingency, and construction costs have gone up dramatically over the last 6 months, and we're also finding with the tariff system the president has put in place, that is also raising construction prices. So we thought we'd rather be safe than sorry. So it's not it's an increase, but it's an increase we felt was prudent for presentation purposes.
And now, have we done any soil testing, either Public Works or the fire station area?
We have not done that yet.
Because those, I would imagine, be the two sources of concern for any sort of EPA issues.
One of the essential parts of the fire department that we talked about is to make sure that it's hardened to a level of Cat 5 for obvious reasons. What about the recreational sites? What do you envision in terms of sustainability for major storms? What kind of...
Basically the building code, and because of you guys positioning as far as the coastal construction zone and where you are in the world, they will definitely be built to a minimum of Cat 4.
Do you have anything else?
Well, as we've discussed, the issue with the existing site of the fire station, Dixon Hall, the community space that's needed has been a real challenge as we've gone through this. We've gone through many iterations of how to make it fit in such a small area. And frankly, from administration's perspective, it's been a major challenge to get through. Commission has looked at a lot of different options for the fire station. We've looked at even more in administration, and it's just difficult. But there is one more thing. For the last almost 4 years, going to put it up, Jennifer. For the last almost 4 years, I've been in discussions with the owner of the company that owns the Marathon Station, 2101 Northeast 36th. On Friday afternoon, we reached an agreement to give the opportunity for the city to purchase that property. And purchase price is $1,750,000. Subject to commission approval, subject to obtaining adequate appraisals, all of the necessary items that you would normally do as part of due diligence. It has an extensive diligence period to allow us to do that, including an environmental study of the property. There is an existing environmental study that was done in 2010 when he removed the tanks. He will be providing that to us. But Mr. Leiter and I have had extensive discussions, and he finally reached the conclusion that, civically, this would be a great location to sell, and he could sell it to the city. He's selling it for less than what he was asking for. I'll let Merrill now show what we could do with the fire station EOC on that location and the savings that would entail.
Oopsie. Sorry about that.
Let me go back there.
Just like you're open.
I'll have
Are you
this
going to
fast.
do the yes or I'll go through it?
Okay. Sorry about that.
That's never
Get out. Okay, so as the mayor suggested, this is our existing city facilities, kind of in the general area, and what would occur differently if we chose to explore this site is that the library would still be able to be a part of this, and then basically a fire station would be built, and the fire station and EOC could be built. This would allow, on the new site, and this would allow Dixon Hall to stay where it is and impact the City Hall site so that the City Hall site as little as possible except for the library. This would allow the fire station to continue to operate smoothly as will the other solution, but it basically keeps a lot of the traffic away from the day-to-day operations of City Hall. We propose to put along Sample would be the living, sleeping, working areas of the fire station, and then followed by the apparatus space to the north, and then north of that would be all the support spaces, the bunker gear, the drug storage, the laundry, the tool room, that kind of stuff. And then ultimately what would happen is the fire station would come down, and we could add another 15 parking spaces to the City Hall site. So today, you have 33 spaces over at the City Hall side. There are 35 today around Dixon Hall, so this would add another 15 parking spaces to the City Hall site. Just to walk you through a little bit, this would also be similar, and as I mentioned, I fronted it along Sample. There are two curb cuts on Sample Road at Northeast 21st Avenue and Northeast 21st Way. So I position it so the apparatus space would basically be pointed east-west so that you could come out of the station and either head right and then head east on Sample or turn left up on Northwest 21st and vice versa if you ended up coming out the other way. Typically the fire department picks a direction and goes with it, but there is an existing median cut on Sample Road there, so it makes it much more streamlined. And this would basically be all the living, working operations as well as the office spaces for the fire administration would be on this first level. Then upstairs would be the training component for the fire station as well as the EOC spaces. And again, that would give you a lot of flexibility with a lot of folding walls, the kitchen that would support it, and then restrooms and storage for the EOC supplies that would be on the second level. And what that would do is bring the number down to $2.48 million for the fire station EOC. This would not require that we have to replace Dixon Hall. It could stay operational and be there as a community amenity. And then we would have the spaces upstairs. It's more streamlined because...
9.4.
Sorry.
I was going to say, build it.
I think I need new glasses, sorry. So it allows us to save...
About $1.2 million in savings.
$1.2 million from the original fire station EOC.
We're still plus $500,000 though. We're still plus $500,000 to buy the land, but go ahead.
Well, you'll see how we make that work.
Just keeping the math going in my head.
Right. So I'm going to call this option D. And basically, if we did the alternate fire station EOC site and the library community room up on the second level, and Danwitt Park option C, which is the single-story solution with the Parks and Rec offices there, and then the Public Works facility, it now comes down to, and with the contingency of 15%, $14.536 million.
Adding to that, the $1,750,000 to purchase the land, we're at round number $16.3 million total.
Pretty close.
It's pretty close push. So there's a lot of opportunity here. Again, we have not negotiated a purchase agreement with Mr. Leiter. We've agreed on a price, though, and we've agreed on some principal terms. At the regular meeting for the commission, I'm going to ask for direction from the commission to authorize administration to purchase the land, enter into a contract to purchase the land subject to commission approval.
Could I ask a question that
Yes.
just came to me sitting here, and I don't know. Is there any way we could move Public Works to the old firehouse and not tear it down and just move Public Works up there? I mean, the building's not ready to crash or anything.
Merrill had done extensive analysis of that building, and the renovation cost of that building was over $3 million.
Yeah, but that was to renovate it, wouldn't it, to make a firehouse? I mean,
But again,
what would it need for Public Works?
well, once we pull the roof off and we find out what's in there, these projects have often, it's an old building, and when we've, I know other cities that have tried to renovate buildings have found that they have black holes to deal with. Plus, I'm not sure that moving Public Works to that location, the footprint's big enough for what we need. Plus, then you'd have Public Works in two different locations, potentially. One over at Danwood Park and one there, because they've got the existing facility over there that's
Yeah,
going to
might
be
put
renovated.
it all there,
So,
lock it down and get parking at the
yeah,
top.
it's not an option that we thought was worth considering.
Just fine.
Just in specific to the possible purchase of the Marathon Station, it also serves an extra purpose in the fact that not only from the fire department side, you have better access to, all parts of the city. It takes it away from that kind of very tight residential/city complex area. But we look at a property that for years, people have always said a fire station should go there. But the gentleman was never even considering a sale. I think that the fact that it's been very difficult to develop that property into a coffee shop or anything else, it gets rid of sort of an eyesore that's been there for years. It provides kind of a new enthusiasm for the Sample Road corridor. I think we're still talking about the Venetian Isles with Publix and everything else, and this is just a good lead-in to move things economically. And besides that, I think it's a much better deal for the fire station as far as access is concerned, and looking forward to hearing the chief on that.
Mr. Mucker. I think it's a really big deal, for all the reasons that Mike said, and then some. That has been an eyesore for years. Don't know what's going to ultimately happen there, but whatever it is isn't going to be as good as this. This is a signature piece of property that links to our municipal campus, a perfect gateway into our campus. We can build a firehouse that has a sort of a beacon for the city and do it right, do it correctly, and it is the perfect place to put a fire station. I would go a step further and say, even if we, for some reason, couldn't build the fire station there, we still ought to buy this property because it's that important. So, don't mean to speak for the rest of the commission, but I agree with Mike, and I would go a step further and say this is a big move, it's a big opportunity, it provides some savings for us, and at the same time, gives us a signature piece of property that I think is outstanding.
I agree totally with them as far as it's an opportunity. We've looked at that place. Even when it was a gas station, it was an eyesore. And then since it's been abandoned for so many years, it's, you drive into the city and here you see that. And it's like Earl said, it's just...
There's one thing Merrill didn't
can't
mention.
pass by.
Yeah, there's also one thing Merrill didn't mention. Jennifer, can you go back a couple slides? And because I think Kyle's going to want to comment on this. One more? Right, one more?
One more, drive through.
Okay, this also gives drive-through access, gives two methods of going in and out. If one side gets blocked for some reason, there's another way out. It also gives us a lot of storage for other equipment in the bays in an emergency. So Kyle, I'll turn it over to you as the expert.
I would just say that again, everybody said the same exact thing. It's just it's the option that we all know is what we need to have. So first of all, I thank the mayor. I know he's been working very diligently to get this taken care of under cloak and dagger to make sure that it's been achieved. However, though, I do think that as we look at it, is that...
Cloak.
Sorry, my bad. I wanted to add that little extra portion for him. I was just giving a little part of the details.
Straight. It's a straight deal.
So I think that's important, and specifically the fact that it's a pull-through station, that we're going to have a larger apparatus bay. It's going to allow more vehicles to be fit in there during an emergency operation type of scenario, bad weather, anything. We've now also taken them off. I've always never liked the fact that our fire trucks were coming out of our city and heading down a residential street pretty quickly, trying to expedite their response time. Now that all of a sudden they could easily go right to Sample Road and hit Lighthouse Point Drive, and it keeps them off of our main roads here, specifically over near our condos. So I think that's important also.
Commissioners, with your indulgence, perhaps maybe we should hear from our department head, particularly our fire chief, real quickly, and have him tell us what he think is best for the next probably 30, 40, last fire station's going on, what, 40 years, 45 years?
45 years.
So it's a big deal, and let's hear
This is truly a breakthrough that we were waiting for. I mean, we've been looking at this site. This has always been the site that's come up every time we try to do something. This is the site that came up to us to say, this is where it needs to be at. This is the place that's going to be the best place. It's going to fit best. And, you know, when that option was off the table, then we had to come back and try to work off this, you know, trying to replace it where it's at and do all these other things. The fact that the mayor was able to get this is incredible. You know, they've been able to, and the work it took to get, like I said, this has been going on for years. The chief that was here before me, they were pushing for the same thing, and we were all looking at it, but we thought that option was going to be off the table. So this is going to really be a nice spot for us for the fire station. That will be right on the main road, right on Sample, get us right out to Federal where we need to go, or right straight down to Lighthouse Drive. It gets us right to easy access to all the main thoroughfares.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
And if I may add, Jay Leiter has been an absolute gentleman to deal with throughout this entire process. The conversations we've had recently, he's understood what we were trying to do, and he even said to me on Friday that he feels an element of civic pride that we'll be able to put the fire station there and make it a signature entranceway to the city.
I think it's also important to articulate something that we've all discussed before, something for the public to hear who hasn't heard it before. One of the things that prompted this, quite frankly, it was percolating before the last storm, but we spend, what's the budget a year? What's our fire budget a year, Frank?
$4 million or so.
$4 million on our fire department. Have our own fire and EMS department in Lighthouse Point. And that is, I've said it before and I'll say it again, having our own independent police and fire is a valuable asset that many cities don't have anymore. They go to Broward, they go to BSO or other things, but we have a fire department and a police department that is going to be at your house within minutes. And the thing that struck me over that last storm is because we have a 45-year-old fire station behind us, in many instances, that fire department and our police department needs to leave the city, given our location, in the event of a major storm. And it didn't happen last time, but in the event of a Category 5, our mayor or whatever mayor in the future is going to be put in the difficult position of basically not having our first responders in the city when we need them the most. And that bothers me, quite frankly. And to me, having this Category 5 structure, whether it goes over there or over there, is important to the residents of Lighthouse Point, and it's something that the residents of Lighthouse Point deserve. And, you know, still in a Category 5 situation, I'll be quite frank, our first responders may still have to leave. But it's going to give the mayor, this mayor or the mayor 20 years from now, the option to keep these first responders in our city as long as humanly possible. And also, if the crap hits the fan, to put it mildly, they have a place to return to the city to start putting this city back together. And that's important. I know it's expensive. It was shockingly expensive to me as well. But when we're spending $4 million a year on a fire department, something that is very important to the city, when you put it in perspective, and we're going to call Frank up, our finance director, to kind of get into the nitty-gritty of how much it's actually going to cost, I think it's money well spent, and it's going to be spent prudently by this commission and used. So I think that needs to be articulated. Commissioner Mock is going to probably summarize that
No, just
much more fluently than I
No,
just
just
did.
one added point. We know, and the residents out here know, that we have a tough sell, that it's going to be expensive in a bond issue. It's not a guarantee that we'll be able to do this. So we're going to have to market this. My feeling is now, if we are able to present this plan with this piece of property and demonstrate to our residents not only why the fire department is important in these other infrastructures, but now we're going to be able to show them a signature piece of property. We can do a rendering of how this would look and the benefits that it would bring to the city on an expanded scale. I think it's going to help with the marketing of this bond to convince our residents of the importance of getting this bond issue done. So we're going to need everybody's help to do that, and I think this will help.
Commissioner Long.
I think that's a very good point. I think it's important for all the residents to realize, and I think they do, that you've been living in Lighthouse Point from a year to 50, 60 years. You know, we've always been extremely prudent financially, maybe sometimes to our detriment. We've waited sometimes too long to do some of the work we've done. Back in, I think, 2001, we had our first bond issue in the history of the city. And I think we've proven to everybody that we have done a really good job managing those projects. And you can see it with this police station, this complex, the expansion of the library, renovation of Dixon Hall, some fire station work, Sample Road, infrastructure with our stormwater. If you thought the floods were bad, look at Coral Springs. But for ours, we've done a lot of work. We continue to. So I think the history of the city has proven that we will always, or always has and always will be fiscally prudent. And these dollars are things that we're investing back into our city that will be long-term capital projects. And I think that's the important thing. It's not only for us now, for future generations that will be here. I think this idea of the bond issue serving so many different programs, from public works to the library, the recreation, to the fire station, these are important pieces of the fabric of our community. And we start looking at what's important at Lighthouse Point. It's the police, it's the fire, it's the library, it's the recreation. And it touches us all in different ways at different ages, and will continue to. So I'm very supportive of this, but it's important that everyone gets out and votes in the affirmative on this. It will cost us a little bit of money, but I think the paybacks will be much greater than we have to invest into, not only for us now, but for the future generations. So if we do go forward with this, which I believe we will, we really need everyone's support, and we need your help doing that.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yeah, and one thing that we talk about off and on over the years, and it's surfaced in some ways that probably are, social media, fake news, etc., these days, but it's extraordinarily important to all of us to have our own police, fire, library. We don't, and we won't ever give that up unless someone, is leading us to the gallows. And having that, and having the control of it ourselves, and being able to support this is so extraordinarily important to us. So it's necessary for us now to step back and to make some improvements, but in the long run, it's worth it. If you're having your heart attack here and someone calls fire rescue, what's the longest it takes? 5 minutes to get somebody there if they're at the other end of town? And same thing with the police. If you're having an emergency, they get there. I had an instance this weekend calling an emergency with the Boca Police, and it was an emergency, and it took them 25 minutes to get there. No such thing would ever happen in Lighthouse Point, because we have our police and our firemen right here, and they're ours. So we'd like the public just to keep that in mind, because that's such an important part of being a Lighthouse Point resident, to have that privilege, to have these people. That's my preach.
And ultimately, the public is going to decide. The public is going to decide. We are just, the magnitude of what this is really kind of grown on me since this has started, and I've tried to boil it down to something very simple. And the question we're going to be asking the community is now the time to invest in your community? And I think for many reasons, now is the time. These buildings are not going to stand forever. I think we've gotten as much bang out of our buck as out of these buildings as possible. And listen, I'll be a bit self-deprecating, and it's true. Just ask my wife. I'm pretty fiscally conservative, but being fiscally conservative doesn't mean not spending money. It means spending money wisely. And when I took a step back and looked at interest rate environment, interest rates on the rise, now is the time to do this, because the one thing, I've said it before, I'll say it again, this stuff is going to have to get done eventually. And if I'm up here, or fortunate enough to be up here 5 years from now, and interest rates are 2 or 3% higher, and we got to do this stuff, I'm going to be upset. And so I think now is the time to ask the residents to do a lot of this stuff. Commissioner Van Bunter has been awfully quiet over there, and it's freaking me out. So I'm going to give you an opportunity to speak before we maybe bring up a couple other department heads.
I say let the department heads speak, and ultimately, and I know that we have residents that are out there that are really eager to say their piece.
I agree.
That's just one of my things, so I'm more than happy to let those department heads speak.
Okay, let's start with Ms. Leasing, if she doesn't mind coming up. And we have now option C as well, so please share your thoughts with the community.
Jennifer, is there any way we could go back to option C by chance?
Yes, so the commission asked for me to, meet once again, and Chuck and I and Merrill to come up with a first floor option, but including the space that we still need. And again, I see that, we have option C, and it's about 8,000 square feet. We see the savings there. But going back to what she said about not being able to do the second floor at Public Works, we know what we're doing with the library. I'm still concerned that right now we have 67 kids on the wait list for summer camp. So I easily could have over 250 kids, and over 90% are residents. So we're still not meeting the needs of the community. And when you're thinking about, I have these kids at, 7 weeks every summer, and right now we still don't have the space, even what we have here. And if we go second floor now with infrastructure that we need, with elevator, the stairs, and everything like that, then if we need to even grow more, we can do that. Whereas the only thing we could do with option C, if we need to grow more, is still go out, which is more and more park space being used. So I just, want to stress that.
How much more, Merrill, how much more community space? Because, it is community space. Anybody in this community is going to be able to use it. Particularly the fact that we don't have an indoor facility to house 150 of our summer camps in the middle of summer campers in a thunderstorm is important. But Sarah, Merrill, to put you on the spot, how much more community space is option A as opposed to option C?
Well, you should go to option A so you can see it, because it's specifically on there.
It is? Okay, I can't read. Eagle eye, I can't read it.
Sorry.
It's about
350 square feet more.
One more back.
C than
One more.
B. Okay.
Okay, never mind. One more after that. First one. There it is.
No.
That's option B.
That's option D. Yeah, we don't want
There, that's 11,000 square feet.
7871
Right, but you have to have the actual physical breakdown. Where's the original one for option A? It has the original breakdown.
There you go. That's gotta be it.
No, it's the next one. It's the first
Merle,
one.
does the 7871 square feet
There you go, there you go,
downstairs
there
of
you go.
Plan A also include the covered patio like you told us?
Perfect, thank you.
All the square footage is for either first floor, first floor solutions include the covered patio. Option A is about 7,800 square feet on the ground floor.
No, how much of that is community?
community
It's
space. That's
community.
what I was looking at. So we have
So the
2,000 square feet.
on the bottom, and then on the second floor, is it maybe on the next one?
Yeah.
Okay. Another 700.
Okay, so we got 2,700 community space in option A, and option C has how much community space? That's community space includes the
Option
teen
C,
center.
the option C has also the community space, which is 2 rooms at 1,000 square feet with a folding wall, so that's another 2,000 square feet. And then we have the other support space with game room, teen center, however we choose to use that, and that was 700 square feet also.
So they both have the same amount of community space?
But if we wanted, what I'm saying is that if we ever wanted to go any more, if we needed more, this is adequate for 150 kids.
Right.
And that's my only concern, is that if we don't go second floor now, is that we never will be able to. The only thing we could do is build out with option C. But, I mean, option C does give us the things that we need, with storage and everything like that. It's just knowing that if we ever need to grow more, it's gonna take up more park space.
But it's 2,700 if it's 2 stories or 1 story, right? So
But I'm
you-
saying that if we are building for a second floor now, we could continue building if we need more space. We can continue second floor options, whereas we'll never have a second floor option.
Because of what she said before. Meryl said before.
You're not going to be able to build out any, if you did put on a second floor now, it's not going to be designed to be building out.
Let's ask Meryl that, that question, because she's the expert. So the question is, the vote's tomorrow, so let's get all this out now. You expressed before, from Mr. Long's actually, very good question, that you build 1 story and 10 years later you want to add a second story, no bueno, because not likely and expensive.
Right.
But Ms. Leasing is expressing that if you built a 2-story facility now, you could somehow expand that second story more easily 10 years later. Is that correct or not?
You could expand to either the east, north, south, probably to the east in this solution, the way that we have it presented, much easier as almost a attachment to the building,
Okay.
not over the building,
I got you. Okay.
right? It would give you flexibility to do that, and then the bathroom core is already there. The support spaces for that could be there, so could give you that flexibility.
Okay.
And again, we have to remember these are all concepts. It's
Right.
not going to be what's built. And if we're thinking about contingency, my whole purpose was if option A is only 5% more, why not just say right now, let's go with option A? And then if 3 years down the road, we need to make options, we have this in our back pocket to decide.
I'm going to push back a little bit on that, because we're not going with, be clear with everybody, we're not going with any of these options right now. We're determining
A price.
how much money we possibly need to build one of these options. So just to rephrase this as correct,
Okay.
should we be asking the residents for enough funds to build option A? Just so we're clear about it.
Right, the
To your point.
the cost differential between option A and option C is about $750,000, if memory serves me correct.
Okay. That was going to be my next question.
Yeah. Roughly 700.
Okay. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Oh, no, actually, it was just more of a question. What is the footprint? The difference of the footprint I see is first floor option A is like 7,800 square feet versus 8,200, so obviously there's a 500 plus, give or minus, difference. And again, I kind of lean on the fact is, it's not a huge park to start off with, so the mere fact that when we start to add another 500 square feet of actual usable park space up, I mean, I do get a little worried about that, and if we bump it out here, bump it out there, that's just only the footprint. That has nothing to do with the concrete around it or any of those other things on the outside. So again, I just want to make sure, do you have any actual physical dimensions? Because this one's, very rectangular as option A. The other one's really just kind of maybe visually appealing, but it definitely juts out and moves around a lot.
Right. I'm trying to remember what it was when I scaled it off. It was about 72 feet wide by 130 long.
Okay.
So it just, the difference really between the two options is that once you go to the second floor, you need the stairs, you need the elevator,
Right,
you need the
absolutely.
elevator equipment room, you need a second set of bathrooms, that's where the layers come in
Correct.
to adding square footage.
What's the footprint of A, would you say?
The footprint of it, 70, yeah.
No. How?
72, 78 or 70, 78 or 72, I'm sorry.
78, 71.
No, that's the
versus
price.
205. No, this is the square footage.
No, it's on dimension.
Dimension, I'm sorry.
Those are not.
72 by 130.
Right, okay.
4, that was what,
That's
A?
for C.
A.
Oh, that was A. Okay, so
That's
what's the
the
dimension
C
for
would be,
C?
We go to C. I don't feel like.
Actually, this is what I gave you was C,
oh,
okay?
So C is 72 by 130.
Right.
Yeah.
So what?
Okay.
Including the covered patio.
Okay.
This is,
Sorry.
the community room is 50 feet deep, okay, just to kind of give you that reference. And then the patio in front of it. Sorry, Jennifer, we're bouncing you around.
First floor, go back. Sorry, Jennifer.
But the patio outside is another 16 to 20 feet.
All right, so basically, we're looking at 50 for the community room, so that's your depth
Mm-hmm.
roughly, and you're looking at I would say, okay, that makes sense. Like 50, basically, you're decreasing.
On the main building, it's about...
Oh, right, okay.
Okay.
50 by basically 20.
Yeah, Commissioner Long?
Yeah, I mean, my concern I brought up the last meeting was by adding a lot of square footage, which we're trying to do, but also different programming, we already have a major issue with parking. And we're already impacting our neighborhoods by the Public Works Building down 46 along Lighthouse Drive. I think that continues to be a problem that we have to consider. I know we've received letters saying buy property here and there, which of course additional costs. Also concerned about staffing, because anytime you go to second floor and you have any children or even adults up there, you have to have a staff member upstairs as well as downstairs. So just to function to open that building for that, you're looking at increased staffing, especially if you're dealing with more kids. Obviously, you're going to have more staffing up there, not just volunteers. We have child protection issues to be considered here. But with the additional programming upstairs, downstairs, you have to look at the additional cost of staffing, as well as parking. So that's a concern for me. I do know we have probably what you classify as wasted space on the east side of the building. At one point, there were some trees there and, the brick pavers and things like that. And that's not being used for anything at the moment. So, I like option C because I think it provides the community space that we have on A, and not having the added expenses of stairwells and elevators, as well as the issues with sight lines and staffing on the second floor.
May I address that?
First?
With staffing and parking, I agree that there's an issue with the parking, but this will take care of that. If we have extra staffing, you put that into the programs with whatever program fee that you have, you add that in there to take care of that cost, so that wouldn't be an issue for the city. And also, if you have that more staff, then you can stagger the programming so that we have less things going on at one night, like everything happening on Mondays and everything on Wednesdays and everything Thursdays. We have 7 days a week that we can be able to do that, so that we have more staff, then we can have our program spread out, and that helps with the parking. We also looked at the parking with Meryl. She did not do the parking that was done there in 2000. And she feels that there is a way that we can try to get more spaces out of the space that we have there, along with the idea of possibly doing golf cart parking in the north end where the Public Works is, because Public Works could use those spaces during the day, but at night, when they leave, we can make that just golf cart parking and try to push that emphasis with our community to help get people to come in different ways to the park.
I didn't do well on my solid geometry, New York State region, so I have a hard time visualizing things. So on the one that's the second story, A, does that second story, is it covering all of the downstairs, or just part?
Just part. Very,
like on the-
there was, right, it's just a part there, because that second floor, again, would allow for the office space to be up,
Right.
where you can have a vantage of a view of the entire park. Again, it separates the office space a little bit from the community, because the first floor, the office spaces are going to be right there, right where the bathrooms are, all that is going to be, we're going to be right there. So I personally think that it would be nice to have administration and any other offices upstairs, but we could use it as a space too for our Public Works, because we talked about them coming over and using the facilities, especially if it's after a hurricane, they would be living there practically, rather than on the floor fixing all.
All right, Commissioners, anything else from Ms. Leeson? We'll probably obviously have to discuss this point, but nothing else. Chief, before we jump to last but certainly not least, Ms. Keys back there, do you want to add anything to the fire station, EOC? Chief Licata?
No.
Sorry, I probably should have done that at the same time.
That's okay. Just some brief comments. That I've had an opportunity to look at the plan and look at the square footage. I believe that it'll serve the purpose for the police department to work under emergency operations conditions. We should have adequate space to do our dispatching, to conduct investigations for our employees to work out of that building should we have to evacuate ours in a hurricane, a Category 5 hurricane. And I think it's a great opportunity for the city to have this beautiful new building right in the gateway of Lighthouse Point. It does provide for an outstanding location for emergency services right on Sample Road, easy access. And I think it does serve the purpose for the fire station and EOC component.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Ms. Keys. Silent but deadly back there. It's like Dixon Hall may be saved.
Yes, I'm very happy.
So is Mr. Hall. So is Mr. Hall.
See the smile on my face, Glenn? You don't get to see that.
I thought you might.
Yeah. I want to talk about domino effects if I can. 3 things happened by purchasing this piece of property and putting the fire station where, not where Dixon Hall is. Number 1, parking. If you were to take down Dixon Hall, you're going to have lose 10 parking spaces, which means the 53 parking spaces for the public we have right now becomes 43. If you put it somewhere else, we gain 15 parking spaces. Now, how does that affect us also with Dixon Hall? Dixon Hall is on the 1st floor. There's a lot of people here that like Dixon Hall. If you like Dixon Hall, raise your hand.
Oh, shameless.
Yeah, Dixon Hall fans back here. And finally, populations. I've been speaking with the state of Florida about a few different things, and this is that both the mayor and Commissioner Jaffe had asked me to look into possible construction grants. And one of the items that is required is to project changes in population. And if you'll indulge me, can I read one paragraph? The Lighthouse Point Library projects that the number of city residents will continue to increase as the age demographics of the city continues to decrease. This is caused by retired residents selling their large single-family homes to couples with young children and then purchasing smaller residences which are also in the city. Nora, raise your hand. Nora's my example back there. She did exactly that. The population and age demographics will continue to shift through 2029 as more baby boomers reach retirement age and decide to downsize their living footprint and expenses. So we are retaining our senior residents because they love the city, they love how it's run, they love having city services. They've decided to have a smaller living footprint, reduce their expenses, and we're welcoming new residents and on my end, patrons. Right now, there are 5,730 cardholders for the city of Lighthouse Point Library. Of those, 4,879 are residents. That's about half of the city. All of those are current cardholders. We clean up our cards every year. They're not, somebody that got a card 20 years ago, and we don't know if they still, we
Not like
clean them
voter,
up.
not like voter rolls.
Yeah,
We
we
do that.
clean them up every single year to keep with all of our funding and grant writing. I would say I'm thrilled with the idea of keeping Dixon Hall, adding parking, and of course, having room in the library to expand programs that we would be able to open up the 2nd floor and have special events up there, or special exhibits, or have an additional larger space for programming.
Thank you.
Any comments?
No, any questions? Actually, any questions for Christie or any of the department heads? I'd personally like to hear from Frank.
We've yet to hear from the fire chief.
We heard from the fire chief. You heard from the fire chief.
Oh, well, you want to hear from him again on that?
Thank you.
You want to hear from him again?
Nope, that's good. I'm fine.
Does anybody else have anything from the other department heads or want to hear from the fire chief again?
No.
Okay. Frank, are you prepared to show us the money? Tell us.
Well, first, in another token of civic pride, I'd like to ask Mr. Leiter to make us whole and just discount his property another $430,000. That'd be fantastic. But I think that, just kind of putting all the numbers together and options A, B, and C, with the land, without the land, we're at about 16.3 million, 16.4, option C.
Whoa. Slow it down, so we can take it off in bite size. I can't process that fast. We're at 16, option A, B, and C with no land. That's without obviously the option
No,
D.
option C with the land purchase, what Merrill referred to as option D, we're at 16.3 million in round numbers.
Okay, all right, so we're at option
That's all
D,
in.
16, that's all in with the
That's all in.
15% contingency. Okay, just got to get my head there.
So, I mean, I have a model here, I can model that exact number, or I can model 17 million, just to give you a round number.
Just do it at 16.5, because that's what we discussed last time, if you could.
So, the other component is trying to figure out what our assessed values are going to be in 2020 when this hits the budget and it actually becomes part of the millage rate. So, I've gotten some early indications that this year we're going to be all in around 6.8% for the coming year for our assessed value increase.
Yeah,
For the coming
the
budget.
tax assessor, the values of the Lighthouse Point generally are going to increase 6.8%.
Yeah.
Estimated for the.
That's overall, between homestead and non-homestead properties. So, homestead properties are limited to about 2.1% this year, so the non-homestead are probably in the 12 to 13% range increase. That's how it's going to balance out. So, and then taking that a step forward to the following year, to 2020, I assume, conservative, meaning that property values may decline slightly for the non-homestead properties. I assume moderate, meaning everything's going to stay the same. And then I assume aggressive, that there'd be a little bit more of an increase. So I just took an average of all three across the board, just to see where we'd end up. And then modeling it on 30-year loan, which seems like that's the most reasonable way to go, and between 4.25%, 4.6%, and 5% interest. So on the aggressive end, meaning we're going to get increases, and at the lowest interest rate, it's about 0.3925.
Okay, let's explain what that,
So
everybody understands the tax law as much as you do.
Let me break it down a little more. So if property values continue to increase at a sustainable pace, and we end up issuing bonds at 4.25% for 30 years, you're looking at about 0.39 and change mils.
And so at 0.39 mils, how much is that per $100,000 taxable value?
That would be about $40 a year.
So, just to take a pause there so we can all drink it in. Per 100. There is also a difference between taxable value and market value. Everybody's always very surprised that their market value of their property is up here, but your taxable value is actually less. So, for every $100,000 of taxable value, we're talking about, to do option D, an extra $40 a year. Correct?
No.
For 100,000, correct, for 100,000, thank you.
So if you have a $500,000 house, taxable value
is $200.
$200, but if you look at some of the older homesteads, there could be
You could have an $800,000 house worth
$250.
Right, exactly.
But we're going to have probably an extra 25,000 exemption too.
I took that into account.
Did you take that into account?
Okay, Commissioner Van Boskirk.
I know we had discussed it originally, but I still think it's an option that we do need to look at a different form of just doing a straight mills increase, so we should also look at maybe changing the assessment. We had discussed using some of the assessment, whether it's a fire assessment, to go ahead and offset some of the actual strict millage only to those folks that obviously everybody uses a service, so everybody should be participating in a fair share cost increase about, for the actual building of the fire station and also maintaining the fire station.
Could Frank maybe expound on that, explain a little bit more for the audience?
That's what I was hoping for.
Yeah, our fire department is comprised of two separate units. One is fire rescue, and the other one is emergency medical services. We currently have a fire assessment in place that allows us to fund fire rescue services only, because they're responding to a property. So the Florida Supreme Court had some rulings on that, and they allow us to assess for property purposes fire rescue only. And we currently have an assessment of about $128 a year, I believe is what it is right now. And no matter whether you're not paying any tax because you're in a condo and it's only a $40,000 a year value, or whether you have a $5 million home, you're still paying $128 a year. So what that means is everybody in the city who's a property owner has a fair payment towards that fire rescue assessment. Whereas if we just leave it all in the ad valorem, then if people who generally pay little or no tax because their value of their property is so low, they won't really pay much towards this project. So there's only so much that we can do with the fire assessment, because we can only assess up to 100% of our fire rescue costs. Right now, we're in the mid-20s, around 25% is what we assess. So we definitely have a lot of room there if we want to increase the fire assessment to help pay for a portion of this debt service related to the fire station, and only the part of the fire station that we can apportion to fire rescue services. So it really just gets chopped down to a very, it's not as much as you think. You know, we'd have to really run the numbers and see how much of our annual debt service, which under this project is going to be about $1 million a year, is related to the fire project. And then of that, we split it 60-40, 70-30, however our allocation is between fire rescue and medical, and then that amount we can fund with fire assessment.
We'll leave that to, if anybody has any questions on that, we can certainly elaborate on that. It's not the simplest concept in the world. Frank, Commissioner, anything else? Frank?
No, I was just wondering, does he have any, obviously, over time, if we could get some sort of rough estimate of what we could actually increase the fire assessment fee to, that would then help us with the debt millage rate?
You want to do that as part of the budget workshop in June? Because this question will be on the ballot in November, so we would know that information.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important.
Analyze it.
Yeah, I think it's important that we at least analyze it so we know that, you know, if everybody across the board pays a $50 increase, then we could then say, okay, well, it's now not $200 a month or a year,
Right.
maybe it's X, whatever X is.
But bottom line, to kind of grossly oversimplify it, Frank, you'll correct me, but ad valorem taxes, the actual dollars a resident pays fluctuates based on the value of your house. What we're talking about are fees, which if you actually look at your tax bill, are a fixed amount of dollars. The $10 million home or $8 million home on the Intercoastal pays just as much as the condo in Lighthouse Point. So it's finding a balance. You can alleviate some of the ad valorem impact on the property taxes by imposing, to a certain extent, some additional fixed tax, basically, on residents. Is that basically it?
Yep.
Okay.
And just to clarify for everyone, this was taking a bond out for $16.5 million. It would provide for public works, library, recreation, fire station, and purchase of said land for a fire station. And you were coming up at a 4.25
Interest rate.
correct interest rate?
Yes.
Which could fluctuate, obviously, but, okay, and you were 3.3925.
Yeah, and if you go to, let's say you want to consider the higher end, and let's say property values decline slightly, then we're only up to about 0.44 mils at 5% interest, and like I said, being very conservative about our property values for the next 2 years. So we're in the 0.40 to 0.5 range mils, and I would say no more than 0.5. We can be pretty safe in saying that. I don't see interest rates getting that high in the next year and a half.
So Frank, to simplify it, based on those two parameters, you're looking at a $40 to $45 range per 100,000.
Correct.
Best case scenario, worst case projected scenario.
Yes.
Frank, can you also, because it is, I think, an important point, and then we'll see where the commission wants to go with this, discuss the impact of the other, we've talked about it, but we have new members of the audience here, the current bond that we're paying off, and how that's going to fall off the millage rolls and kind of net it out. Could you do that?
Yeah, the last year, we paid off, I believe, in August of 2022. So the last year that residents will be paying that millage is the fiscal year 21-22. So, which would be maybe the second year that this would come in, this new millage would come into effect to pay for these bonds, and that's currently 0.1910. As our property assessed values continue to increase, that amount goes down little by little every year.
Right.
So, but call it 0.19 even 2 years from now, or 0.17, whatever we say. So that amount is going to, residents won't have to pay that anymore. So if the total combined millage is 0.60 for both our old debt and our new debt, it'll drop down to 0.45. You know, it's a direct offset once they stop paying that.
Can we, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, if you can't do it, that's fine. We're between, so if this all passed and everything we talk about came to fruition, we're talking about anywhere from between $40 to $45 addition to what you're paying now on your taxes per 100,000. On your taxes now is a millage, 0.12? 0.19, thank you, that is going to pay the bond that the city took out 20 years ago.
It's $19.
So, thank you. You knew where I was going.
I knew you were going.
No, the $40 to $45 in 2022 actually becomes No?
No. Stays
It stays 45, but you're not paying that 0.19 anymore.
Right, but it's 19 plus 45,
Oh, plus
starting
45.
at 22.
Okay, I got you. Okay.
So you've got 2 years it's going to be.
You've got 2 years that it's going to be the overlap,
Right.
and then that other debt falls off in 2022.
Right.
Okay. Does anybody have any other questions for, Frank?
So that, just for the commission, are we happy with 16.5?
Well, I think let's,
Well, I mean, if we go higher or lower, that's going to change his numbers, so just.
I mean, I guess the question du jour, I'll ask it, because this only happens once in a lifetime, is, can you tell us how much an extra $750,000 is going to cost us if we went with option A, the two-story facility? I mean, I just got to ask the question. I'm not saying I'm in favor or against it, but I want to know the number.
Option A with the land purchase.
With the land purchase.
Including contingency, I have around 17.2 million. And so if we model that, now we're starting at, again, best case scenario, aggressive property tax growth, lowest interest rate, it's about 0.41 mils.
Okay.
And, not best case scenario, conservative property growth at around 5% interest is 0.4532.
So we're now gone from between 40 and 45 to 41 and $46 per 100,000?
Yeah, the first, I would say the first one was a little bit lower than that. It was more like 0.39 to 0.43.
So 39 to 43?
And now we're at 0.41 to 0.45, a little over 0.45.
So it could be $2 to $6 a year. Okay, I just want to know the
$2
number.
to $6 a year per 100,000.
Per 100,000.
100,000 of assessed value.
Oh, man, come on.
The option A adds about 750,000, and which comes out to, like Director Leasing said, it's a 5% increase in the total cost. I think it's about a 44% increase in the cost of doing just the rec center, but for the entire project, when we're looking at 16, 17 million, it only adds about 5% of the cost to the whole thing.
Okay. Anything else? I said that about 50 times. So anything else for our finance side?
I was actually surprised. I think Sandy was thinking the same thing. We're talking the difference of $2 to $4 per 100,000. That's not. I was expecting a bigger difference. I was expecting to say that we were,
I get it, but I would prefer to stay at 16.5 for one reason only. If we're going to be looking at the fire assessment to pay a portion of it, we would make up that difference with any increase in the fire assessment. And that way, people have already heard the 16.5. They have accepted it somewhat, I think. We'll find out more later on.
That's code for we get to fight about option A, B, and C later on.
We get to fight about
Yeah, okay. Okay, so.
Fine. So if we vote on this 16.5, we're not throwing out option A.
We're not, no, not yet. Yep, go ahead.
One last thing I want to point out, just like our current debt service that we have, if our debt service every year is fixed, meaning that it's the same annual debt payment, and if our property values go up each year, then that millage can be lowered each year to raise the same amount of money. So even though we're saying right now it's going to be 0.39 to 0.44, but if property values go up and we're still only paying, let's say it's $1 million a year, that millage will start to come down slowly. So like the second year I have it coming down to, on the first option we talked about, the 16.5 million, from 0.36 to 0.41 range. So there's, that's not ever going to be set for the whole life of the loan as long as that debt service is fixed.
Right.
It should be.
Okay, commissioners, Mayor, go ahead.
I just want to make it clear that when we go to the special meeting, that there's going to be two questions the administration is going to ask for direction on. One is to move forward with the bond and put it up and continue it on the agenda for tomorrow night. And the second item is to authorize administration to enter into a purchase agreement subject to commission approval for the purchase of the 2101 properties.
Okay. Commissioners, I certainly want to give ample time to the people that have taken time out of their day to address these issues with us. It's kind of fresh. I mean, we could adjourn the workshop now and then convene the special meeting.
Yes.
We could give opportunity for the residents to come up. I think at the special meeting, we need to probably give them an opportunity as well. First.
Right.
So it's up to the local commission. I don't mind having people come up twice. I think with a question of this magnitude, that's fine with me, but I am but a mere vessel for the will of the commission, so guide me. What do you want to do? Would we like to give the public time to come up now? We'll then adjourn and then convene the special meeting. I have a feeling the special meeting is going to be pretty short, so...
Let's give them a chance to speak.
Okay. All right, whatever. So we'll open up to public comment on these topics. You are going to get another opportunity at the special meeting. So don't feel like you have to come up twice, but less is more in my opinion. So, okay, I guess we'll open it and batter up.
Thank you for your time. Linda Connors, 2781 Northeast 25th Street. I do have a couple of questions, and I have been talking to many of our neighbors, and I think it's an excellent opportunity to purchase that property. But one, if we're purchasing it now, do we have money in the contingency? How much money do we have in the contingency, and can we offset that cost from the contingency and just not include it in the budget for the special assessment? The library second floor renovation, we had planned that, or what the design was planned with the thought that Dixon Hall was going to go away. So with that, what's the difference in the square footage? Because I also noticed that you're taking away some of the study rooms to put in elevators and staircases. So what is the actual difference, and what are we paying for that? Because it doesn't seem like it's an efficient use of the money. It's $600,000, and if we already still have Dixon Hall, and we have the study rooms on the bottom, I know it's a small percentage of the cost, but I think if it shows that you're being fiscally responsible with the funds and reduce it even a minimum amount, it would be a better sell. When you go forward with the bonds, I think it would be in our best interest to break those down. I know a number of people aren't interested, for example, in improving the library because we've just done that. And along with the Dixon Hall, again, I think that would be prudent to break those down. I know many, many people are in favor of fire station, and Public Works is embarrassing, to say the least. So recreation, I think, while I'm a big user of the recreation department, many of the items that we already have are being underutilized. They talk about having a sports, what was that, catering there, and we can't even get our scoreboards utilized. So what are we really doing with having that much at the park? And the other thing is the fact of the staffing. We need to look at, if we're really having that, how is it going to affect and impact our budget in the future? I'm not saying it's not, but if we're going to have that room and those community facilities available, we need to be able to have the staff to do that. So you need to look down the road and see how that's going to impact not just for the budget, but for the bond, but also for the budget. Because the worst thing to do would be to have those rooms available and then not be able to use them because you don't have the staff. And then finally, it looks like we have community rooms in the fire department, community rooms at Dixon Hall, community rooms at the library. Do we really, not at the library, but at the park, do we really need? And then, of course, we have a community room at Frank McDonough Park. Do we really not need all that community room space? Can we keep that space centralized? How many kitchens do we actually need? Do we need one at the fire department and at the park and at Dixon Hall? And you see what I mean? So if you would please look into that. And then finally, many of us feel that the status of the pension is more important than the status of these bonds. And if we all say that it's so important for us to make sure that we have a fire department, a fire station, have a place for our police department to be in. We need to make sure that we have the best police department possible and the best fire department possible. And that is not possible if we don't go to the FRS, and it is not possible if we don't take care of these people now. I, for one, won't vote for any bond until I know that our fire department and police department are taken care of, and I know many, many, many of our friends feel this, my friends feel the same way. With that being said, the administration has been very silent on the status of that, and I understand that most of the information that we're getting is from outside of the administration. And some people have said that it's very skewed and we don't know what's going on, and the reason we don't know what's going on is because we haven't heard from our government. So I think it is important for our government to let us know what's going on. Why is it taking 2 years? And let's get that taken care of so that we can move forward. I would like to vote for the bonds, but I won't until this is taken care of. Thank you very much.
Understood. Thank you. Next.
Matt Donahue, 2820 Northeast 39th Court. First off, I'd like to thank you all for having this workshop, and the mayor, thank you very much for the negotiations on that. I think that's a great move. I think if we could put the fire station there, Commissioner Mocker is exactly right. It's a much better look than what we have out there right now. I had a whole kind of laundry list of things that I wanted to touch base on, but I think I just wanted to bring up from another resident standpoint just to address some of the issues that you brought up. The Parks and Recreation, as Commissioner Long said, we do run a fiscally responsible city, so we would not just throw money out the window to add more staff and to add more people to an existing program that doesn't justify it. And I think you can see, based on the number of kids that we have in our Parks and Recreation right now, we don't do that right now. They're running a very tight ship over there, and there's a lot of things that we could do that we can't do because of the facilities and because we don't have the money. Commissioner Johnson, I think you made a great point about at the last commission meeting when we were talking about the upstairs in the library, and it should have been done at that point, and unfortunately now you look at the cost of what we're spending now versus what we would have spent on the initial. I think if you look at that and we think about the Parks and Recreation building, we need to go as big as we possibly can, and the library director made a great point. If you look at the growth of the city and where we're going, if we build thinking of today and only today, by the time we do get 5, 10, 15 years down the road, we're going to find ourselves in the same position that we're in right now, where we're spending 3, 4, 5, 6 times as much to be able to expand those things. So we have plenty of park and recreation activities that are going on that we could use more. As the recreation director said, we've got a waiting list of 70 kids. 90% of those kids are Lighthouse Point residents. So at the point that we're standing right now, we're unable to cater in that one area. Not to say that those other projects are not serving of money, but in the one area, we're unable to cater to the city residents that we have right now. So, the scoreboards are running. The scoreboards are running almost every night when we can. We have 2 people that basically run that park. So we're pulling these people from both ends. So I think if we build this building and if we do this, we need to do it with the understanding that we're not doing it for today. We're doing it for 5, 10, 15 years down the road. So we can look back and say, wow, that was a good investment on the city. From a resident standpoint, the worst thing would be is for us to go and kind of scrimp and save a little bit, and then 2, 3, 4 years down the road, we're expanding in the way that the library director has stated, and then here we are, and we're right back in the same situation, and we're saying, well, we have 100 kids now on the waiting list, 100% of them are city residents, and we only can fit 175 kids in the park for thunderstorms or whatever those may be. So all these programs, Chuck's Public Works is a great use of money. I don't think there's anybody that can honestly come up here and say that looking at everything that we're doing, we're wasting the city's money at what we're doing. I think you guys are doing a great job at looking how we can better use the money, and I know my timer went off, how we can better use the money, and I don't feel in any way that we're wasting city's money by addressing all the issues at the high points that we're addressing and at the financial, taking it to the limit of what we're doing, because, again, we're here to grow the city. We're not here to back the city into a corner and then find ourselves in a situation in 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up. All you have to do is state your name and your address, please. Although Ms. Keys has already introduced you, so you're obviously famous.
I need some more recreation. I'm Nora Sullivan, and I just want to add on to what that gentleman said. I agree completely. I think the idea of having a very visible entry with the fire station, that old gas station, is wonderful. And I would like to also go on the library point of view. The last time that we did have the library redone and City Hall and everything, it was, the second floor was not finished in that bond issue. It was to be finished in the next bond issue. And this is that bond issue. The number of senior citizen classes that we have in programs is impressive, as all of you know. But there are many, many that are needed because we don't have the room. We don't have the staff, we don't have the room. And so class numbers have to be cut down. Certain proposed classes cannot be added. And the small staff, permanent staff that is there is stretched at all times. So I really heartily agree with everything that has been agreed for the expansion of the library, as well as everything else that was made. And I thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Debbie Parks, 4230 Northeast 26th Avenue. I stayed up last night and I wrote a long, come back to the proposals I originally saw. They did not include the change in venue for the firehouse, the change in property, and they did not include C for the Danwood Park. My main concern is at this point, being a senior citizen, is right now you spend really no money on our recreation as seniors. It's all volunteers who teach the classes, it's grants that pay for the equipment, and we use Dixon Hall. And I'm so thrilled you're saving that building because it's easily accessible. It's not 3 floors up. It's a great location. We can go to Publix afterwards. We can go to the library. We can go to City Hall. It's great, and I appreciate you doing that. I think the change of the firehouse, making it 2 stories instead of 3, which is my understanding what you're trying to do, is perfect. You've solved everything I had complaints about that 3rd floor. And
Stop right.
I'm really, really tired. My husband and I don't have children. We've never had children in this neighborhood. We retired here. I'm so tired of hearing how much money has to go for the recreation of children. If those parents want their children recreating, let them kick in. Let them do some fundraising. I don't think it's necessarily my job to build a brand new building for them so they can have more explorative programs that have to be staffed, that have to be taken care of. And even they're going to have indoor public bathrooms. Now the bathrooms are externally accessible, so you don't have to go into any building, you just go right in the bathroom. These bathrooms are going to be inside. That means somebody's got to really be around there all the time. The building's going to be open to the public all the time, and you're going to have somebody in there policing the bathrooms and what else they're getting into. You have a teen room. Well, as you mentioned, you're going to have staff in there because if you don't have programs and staff, it's just an empty room, and they're going to get in trouble if you let them in there. So now you've got new programs, new staff. The only thing I hear good about that is there's maybe room for the kids in the summer when it rains, so they don't have to take over Dixon Hall and kick the seniors out of there for the summer. Just the time of year we need to use that hall for exercise. They, on rainy days, we can't use it at all. From May to October, we're out of there. We have to exercise in the heat. On rainy days, the kids use it, and that's why it's empty. So I think there could be a little shift of priorities in some way and think a little bit more about the seniors. And also, what about a bocce ball court or a pickleball court? Everything's for the kids. So I appreciate the way it's panning out, but I think the library, and at this point, and the community center in Dixon Hall is not a major priority, at least not for a certain level of the community.
Thank you for expressing your views.
Good morning. My name is Carlos Arenas, and I'm coming here in three capacities. First, as a Lighthouse Point resident. My address is 1951, yes, Northeast 39th Street. Second, as a volunteer of the Lighthouse Point Library, for which I'm honored. And third, as the current flotilla commander for the U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary, Flotilla 37. In the presentations, I've seen the fire station featuring a vessel, and our crest also has two vessels on it. Yet, for everyone but who has docking space, Lighthouse Point is landlocked. We don't have a point of access for a small craft, and I would be surprised that that is not a hindrance for maritime emergencies for the fire department. Second, I would like to state that paddle craft users are the most rapidly boating community in growth, and not only that, it's scary how fast the casualties and fatalities are growing in that segment. The Coast Guard Auxiliary, the main mission of the Coast Guard Auxiliary is RBS, recreational boating safety, and we are trying to reach out to those people, and it is increasingly difficult because of how online access to resources is, and each time is more difficult to get students in our ABS courses. Having an access to the waterways would prove to have a direct point of contact with that population, and I will be surprised that having that is not going also to be an important role in case of a mass casualty. I would love to hear what you have to say about having a point of access to the waterways. Thank you.
I think it is, I'll address it briefly, because I think it is worthy to be addressed. The problem is we don't have any place to put it. We just don't. We struggled with land to begin with. Yeah, I mean, we have access at the Pram, was it the Al Fletcher? Is that Al Fletcher?
Well, that's where the police boat is kept, but when we pull it, I think, Chief, don't we take it down to Pompano, 14th Street? Yeah.
It's a fundamental problem that this commission has been struggling with since we started this whole concept of the fire department is land. That's the one thing. We've gotten this opportunity to buy some, but I still believe we're not creating it. It's still land that was there, but we're buying it. And I don't know of a piece of waterfront property, A, respectfully, that we would be affording, or B, where it would be. And I just, to be blunt about it, I feel that's the problem. That's the problem we have. Anybody else want to add to that? But thank you for bringing it up.
And please, we are nothing but thankful of all the support that we receive from the city. Whenever we ask, we don't see anything but open doors. I don't want to make you feel that we're ungrateful.
That's not how we took it. This is a place for ideas, and you brought an idea, and we're just limited by what we have, and it's appreciated.
We're just trying to do well by voters and the city.
Understood. Anybody else? Comment?
Bill Lindsay, 2831 Northeast 39th Street. I think you guys know this. You're going to have to sell this thing on the ballot, and I would suggest getting the facts straight. I mean, we talked about the city growing. If we go to the last census, the population has decreased in Lighthouse Point 3.9%. So to sit here and say, well, we're growing, get facts straight. You know, I'm not for or against what we're doing. I haven't made that decision yet, but do get the facts straight. A question that's come up, and this is from people we've talked to, is that we talk about the need for the kids in the park and I support that 100%, but get facts straight. Do we have a growing kid population or a decreasing kid population in this community? It would inherently seem from people I've talked to that as we build more $5 million houses, you're kind of inching out younger kids who would inherently use these facilities. So these are all issues that I think will come up. So if you are going to go forward with it, be ready for that. These type of questions being asked on trying to sell it. I guess the question I have is, building a new facility over near the park for Public Works, how do we get rid of the flooding problem? Because the flooding problem doesn't seem to be the building. It seems to be the whole infrastructure around it.
Have to raise it.
Well, we're not getting rid of the flooding problem, we're getting rid of the flooding problem in the building then, right?
No, you have to do drainage as part of that raising.
Okay. And those are all things. A curiosity question would be the option that hasn't been put forward. There's always numerous options. Is what does the status quo cost us, and why do we need to make these changes? You know, I think yes, a great fire department building is great, but I agree wholeheartedly with the person who said, let's take care of the guys and the women that are working in there also. Why do we need the new building, I guess would be the question. Are there regulation reasons we have to do it? Is it the building's old, etc.? But to say that's not an option, it is an option. Status quo always is an option, and it's probably one of the easiest options unless there's reasons overriding that. So get your ducks in order is all I can say, and people in this community will make a good decision, hopefully. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners, Mayor, Mr. President. I wanted to at least weigh in on this issue because I know that there's been a lot of talk about it. I want to first start by saying that I've been accused by many of being fiscally responsible more times than certainly anyone on the Broward County Commission. But as a matter of fact, my wife would reclassify that as being flat out cheap. That being said, the right time financially for this work would have probably been 3 to 5 years ago, as we were coming out of the Great Recession and money was practically free to borrow. That being said, I would remind this board that in March of 2003, we the residents approved the first bond in the city's history. My memory serves me, and it doesn't always do that these days, but it was around $6 million. 6.2. I believe that first bond was the first in the city's almost 50 years history at that time. That was about 3 years before we turned 50. Many people in this room that define Lighthouse Point, and there's a reason why we don't live in Boca Raton, Coral Springs, and Weston, which are all very nice communities. We didn't move here because of a planned nature of the community or the appearance of Disney World with the streets and landscaping that are perfect at all times. Not to mention the fact that one of the things I didn't see in here, and I know these are capital improvements, but in the process of looking at our city, we probably need to consider not every street, but certainly our main thoroughfares being somewhat lit. So folks that do walk at night don't trip over broken sidewalks or risk danger from a dog or somebody or worse. And as Linda stated, if we don't, and I can say that until we get it done, we haven't, take care of the basic needs of our first responders, and then all this is for naught. My wife and I celebrated 23 years of marriage yesterday and have lived in the city since 6 months before we got married. Actually, I lived in the city. She's a good Catholic girl and lived with her parents. Incidentally, we don't have children, but the life of this city has always been through the generations of families that have been brought up in Lighthouse Point, and I support the right-size recreation facility that places the director at the park. I also strongly support the purchase of the Leiter property, and I have always supported buying that property. Not sure what we could have bought it for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years ago, but I am happy that the mayor has persisted and spent some time with Mr. Leiter to come to a reasonable number. We appreciate the responsible government that we have always had, and with leaders like Leo Vance, who probably could be doing something else better with his time right now, all the way through you, Mayor Trost. It has been responsible leadership and fiscally responsible leadership. But now's the time to make this investment, and I don't want to see our community fall in the trap of poor planning. I know that Marilyn and her firm has been representing the city since before, or probably right when I was on the commission. think about the 10% contingency, whether it is enough. I don't know that, I certainly don't think that 5 is the right number, but it can also be returned if unused at the end of these projects, I'm sure, in the form of some type of decrease in millage, whether how you net people back to where they need to be. I don't know that raising the fire fee is the right way to go about it. It's probably a little bit more fair that folks that aren't paying, that wouldn't pay in a millage increase. It's difficult for me to contemplate that since I've never voted for one of those, but I certainly think that the bond issue is the way to do this. You just have to be careful, and I want to highlight one last thing, if I could. You know that Coral Springs went out for, I'm not sure the number, but it was about 4 different bonds. Pompano went out for multiple bonds at $183 million total, and all passed with about a 2/3 vote. None of Coral Springs passed. That could be for the simple fact that Coral Springs is still working off of former bonds, built multiple fire stations, built a new city hall and all that. Maybe the people didn't feel that it was necessary, but certainly in Pompano they voted in support of projects like this. I just think it's time that we, as much as we don't expect our city to be perfect in every way from a visual or aesthetic purpose, we do need to put a little bit of money back into what we have here, and it's a special place. So special that I probably wouldn't be in Broward County if I didn't live in Lighthouse Point. And if you look at some of the other cities and how they've run their books and how they've run projects like this, Fort Lauderdale is a great example, borrowing money from major infrastructure areas that they probably should have left where it was so that they don't have failure in infrastructure in order to keep continuing to grow and do other things. So last thing I'll leave you with is let's make sure that the residents of Lighthouse Point are informed on what's going on with the first responders contracts, and I think that's important. And as far as the pension, I'm not saying that the right thing isn't being done, but folks aren't getting the message, and I certainly don't want to get it from a peer-to-peer network or emails or anything like that. I'd rather get it directly from you all. And then I think, as I said, I think this is probably the right time to do this, and waiting any longer, certainly construction costs, as Glenn, as Mayor brought up, construction costs are not going down. The county has many, many projects where we thought something was going to be X, and it's not X plus 1.25%.
Marco, you're putting me in the unenviable position of probably cutting you off.
That's all right. That's all right.
No,
you can do that.
Thank you for the input.
Be conscientious about this. That's all I say.
Understood. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Uh-oh.
There he comes.
Bringing in a closer.
He was dancing over there earlier.
Leo Pence, 3000 Northeast 31st Avenue. Spelled D-E-N-T-C.
Your picture's on the wall.
I'm not going to bother reading in detail the letter that I sent all of you by email. But the one thing I would like to mention first off is give a lot of thought to raising the bond amount. One for the unexpected, which you all have mentioned, and one is, I think this lot at the end of the parking from Denwick Park is important so that the cars leaving don't have to go past Public Works. Now, new issues. One, we have tide rise. So the mayor's idea of buying the gas station site and the way it was laid out up here a little bit, if you raise the height of the building by 12 inches, now you have room for the fire trucks to come down a moderate grade before they hit the street. And we need to give some thought to that. I'm somewhat of a little bit denier on tide rise, so when I say think about it, that's a big step for me. One is, I can't see the small print up here. I don't know whether my eyes are bad, but...
No, they're just small.
There's two things. I think you need another architect. The amount of another, a comparative. You need a new idea to think about. And you're spending a lot of money, and you might as well invest another $25,000, $30,000 or $1,000, whatever it might be, to have a new architect with new ideas to come in. The library, not always my favorite. Because I see the books in my office have all disappeared. Books in my home, a good many of them disappeared. I don't know whether we've taken care of the public works. We need to repave Lighthouse Drive. And now, we get too involved in what this is going to cost, and we get into a lot of smoke and mirrors. How much is the millage going to increase? What percentage is the millage going to increase for this one project? It's going to be 14%, 15%. We don't need to use how much per 100,000. We should be able to say that everybody's tax bill is going to go up by 15% based on this bond issue. Now, if that number is wrong, then we need to correct it. But there should be a definite percentage. Now,
We can only give a range at this, we could only give a range at this point, Mr. Benz, probably.
if you borrow $16 million over 15 years or 20 years at a 3% rate or a 4% rate, that's a percentage.
I understand.
And you could make a little schedule so that everybody knows exactly what the millage and the percentage of their taxes are going to increase. It'll be the same for the low-priced homes. Their tax will go up this percentage, and the high-priced homes will go up this percentage.
Understood.
Now, some of the other things about fire, there I think you're shifting some of the costs in your discussions, you're shifting some of the costs of the bond kind of unfairly on the lower-priced homes as compared to the higher-priced homes. So I would be careful of that.
Mr. Benz, you're putting me in the unenviable position of cutting off a sitting county commissioner, someone running for state office in Tallahassee, and a former mayor. I know you have a lot to say, but we're pressing on time.
No, that's okay. I'm finished.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Benz. I didn't want to cut you off. Anybody else? I see some people out there smiling. That means they're hesitant, but they have stuff to say. We're always accessible, so you can do it if you don't want to do it in the public sphere. But please, sometimes it's most prudent to do it in the public. Anybody else? All right, seeing none, hearing none. Going once, going twice. Sold. We're closing public comment in the workshop. Commissioners, go ahead.
I have one thing that I want to say, that I think that it's really important that we all work together on this, and I don't think that it's in any of our best interests to be pitting one department against another department, because what makes Lighthouse Point what we are is the whole picture. The fact that people want to live here. Why? Because we have good police, we have good fire, we have good recreation, we have good library. So I don't think we can separate it and say, I don't have children, so I don't think we should work with recreation. I don't go to the library, so why should we put more money there? I never go to the library. Or, well, I've never used the ambulance. I've never had a fire in my house. Anybody can sit back and say, I use this part, I don't use this part. But what we have to keep in mind is what we're trying to do is make this city on the whole better. And one of the things that brings people to our city is our services, and brings people that have children here because we have a good recreation program. We have a good police department. It makes our housing values go up. So whether you have kids or whether you are, have heart attacks or anything, it's what we're doing is trying to make our city on the whole. And I think that it would really upset me personally to see us picking at each other. And probably the thing that everybody in the city uses more than anything is public works. When you come right down to it, they're everywhere that make our city better, and they're probably the unsung heroes. And we're talking about all these other parts, and these guys are the ones that do everything, and yet no one really realizes how much they do for us. But please try and think of this, all of you, and go out to your friends and try and just keep it in mind. Don't let in education that I made my life in, we had to educate the whole child. We can't separate it, so please try and think of that and think of it as a whole picture, please. Thank you.
Commissioners, we have a whole other meeting, so.
I had
The
to
chair,
say that.
no, I don't, that's fine.
You
The
know,
chair will, yeah,
People may leave.
that's fair
I
enough.
want it on the record.
I agree.
That's how I feel strongly.
So we have another meeting, we're going to call people up again, if they want to come up for protocol. So the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn the workshop, and then we will reconvene the special meeting immediately thereafter, and the fun starts all over again.
I'll offer a motion to close the workshop.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We'll adjourn. Do you need to take a
Yeah.
quick restroom break? Yeah.
2 minutes?
Yeah.